It is so hot right now, and I'm sat in a more shaded corner of my bedroom, so I'm so sorry if the lighting keeps changing, going weird. But anyway, welcome. My name is Lily, and I love writing fantasy novels, and currently I'm working on my vampire romantasy. I've been working on it since 2022. Its name is Slay a Bride. It is fun. I feel like I need to come up with a pitch for it, but I will do that not now, at another time. But anyway, I love it very much. It is my baby, and I've been working on her for quite a long time, and I'm hoping to finish working on her sometime over the next 12 months. And some exciting news I have to share is that I have finally finished reading through the printed out manuscript of draft 3, so I'm now ready to get into the brainstorming stages of draft 4. And I was hoping to take you guys along with me whilst I did that today. As I have already written this book a fair few times, I don't need to brainstorm from scratch, but basically there are some parts of the book where I need to insert some scenes, I need to add some subplots, and I need to develop various characters, chapters, etc. So I wanted to spend some day just like gaining some inspiration, creating some Spotify playlists, Pinteresting, jotting down random notes and thoughts I have. So I just thought we'd have some like writing fun. I feel like brainstorming is one of the most fun parts of the writing process. For obvious reasons, I don't want to go into too many specifics. Basically, I don't want to give too much away about the plot and that sort of stuff, but I will share with you the sort of like areas of the book that I need to brainstorm a little bit of. So the first area, I've written it all down on the back of my manuscript, but the first area is Act 1, where I need to make my protagonist more proactive. Basically, she gets really proactive as the story goes on, but those first few chapters, it is kind of like things are happening to her, as opposed to her going out of her way to make things happen. And in books in general, characters are a lot more interesting when they are proactive. So I think it's really important that in those first few chapters, I'm sort of like showcasing my character in her best light, or making her as interesting as she possibly can be. So yes, Act 1, those first few chapters, I need to make my protagonist more proactive. The next area of my book that I would like to change a little bit is the fun and game section. So the first part of Act 2. There are, I want to say, about 4 chapters that I just felt like needed to be added, the first part of Act 2, just to kind of like deliver the promise of the premise a little bit more. I feel like with how I'm pitching my book and what sort of like the selling point of the book is and the story idea is, I feel like in these fun and game sections, I could be delivering the promise of the premise a little bit more than I currently am. I feel like I almost jumped straight into more of the midpoint shift part of the book. So we go from Act 1 directly into the midpoint shift rather than Act 1 into fun and games. So I just want to add some more like fun chapters here. I also felt when I was reading through Act 2 that the romance sort of like went from like 0 to not 100, but like 0 to 50. And there was some development that was missing, some sort of like early stages of the romance that's missing. So make sure that when I'm adding these 4 chapters to the fun and game section, I'm also giving some scenes in which my characters can develop the romance a little bit more and make it slightly more slow burn, slightly more slow pace. I haven't actually added the bullet point to my list of big picture stuff to brainstorm here, but I do also want to go over the romance arc in general and sort of just pace it out a little bit more. I love writing romance scenes. They're one of my favourite scenes to write, and I feel like I get a bit excited to write them a little bit too early on. So I'll also do a bit of like jigging about with the romance plot, but I don't know if I'll do that today in the brainstorming section of draft 4, or if I'll leave it for the plotting section, because I don't know how much I actually need to brainstorm for that, but that's something I should or maybe will think about today. In the second half of Act 2, I also want to look at the enemies draw closer portion of my book. Without giving too much away, my character basically goes on, I guess, a sort of like fantastical pilgrimage, or there's some sort of like temple-y, religious-y stuff that happens in my world where she needs to go, talk to various gods about various magical things. And basically, I was wondering if I could make this portion of the book a bit more like epic. So currently she's sort of like staying in one place, and I think it would make so much more sense for her to like explore the country that she's in a little bit more. So I don't have any like concrete ideas on how I'm going to change that. So today is all about creating those concrete ideas and doing some brainstorming. So I want to brainstorm how to make this part of the book even more interesting than it currently is, because I do currently like it, but I feel like I'm not tapping into the potential of this idea as much as I should be. And then lastly, and this is probably the part I'm most excited to brainstorm today, I want to focus on my characters, my protagonist's love interest, and I want to develop him a little bit more. Whenever I'm writing a book, the first few drafts are kind of like me getting to know my characters. It's almost like when I'm drafting, I'm having a conversation with them and I'm learning more about them. And I'm like cracking the code of who they are, what their character arc's going to be, and like the journey that they want to go on. I feel like I have a very I don't know if holistic's the right word, but I have a very sort of like hippy dippy, wishy washy approach to getting to know my characters. I don't really do like character profiles or anything like that, or like think about them too logically or analytically. I sort of let them show me who they are in the various different drafts. And this was pretty like easy with my protagonist. It's pretty easy with my side characters, but the love interest in this book has taken so long for me to get to know him. But I feel like finally the other week, it just clicked and I could just see him perfectly in my head. And I just knew exactly who he was, what his backstory was, how he feels, what his relationship with life is, and his misbeliefs and the areas and the ways in which he needs to grow. I just felt like he came to me all at once. Without sounding too insane, it kind of made sense to me that this character took a long time for me to get to know him, because I feel like he's not a very trusting person, and he's not, well actually yeah, I was about to say he's not an introvert, but I think he is an introvert, and he kind of keeps himself to himself. So it makes so much sense that when I was like writing him and getting to know him, that it took a long time for me to like crack the code of who this character is. Like he doesn't even have a final name yet, which is crazy. I have never struggled to name a character so much in my entire life as I have writing this love interest. I've never struggled with names before, so that's another thing I should probably do today, is develop name ideas for this love interest. But in terms of brainstorming and what I want to do with him, I just want to like, write down the notes I have for his surface level personality, which has changed a little bit from previous drafts, and also like do some brainstorming for his character arc and how that's gonna like take place throughout the story, because he does arc, but I just don't know if I fully understand what his arc is yet. That probably sounds really crazy, but yeah, I just want to brainstorm what his character arc is, brainstorm a bit about his personality, and most importantly, I want to brainstorm his own separate plot for this book, so his own little subplot and the adventures that he goes on when we're not seeing him. So when, because this book is single POV, it's only from my protagonist's point of view. So obviously there are like so many chapters where the love interest isn't in there. So I want to like get an idea of like what he's doing off the page. And I kind of want to tie that into Act 3 in some way, where the things that he's doing come back around in Act 3 and help us to, defeat the villain, defeat the bad guy. So that pretty much is an overview of what I want to be brainstorming today. I am so excited. I have never been so excited in my life. That's a lie, but that is a lie. But I'm really happy today. I think even though I'm absolutely melting up here, I am so hot. I'm in an attic bedroom. I think the sunshine has just like brought me out of my shell a bit, and I'm really excited to like use this excited energy that the sun has given me to channel it into my book. So yes, that is pretty much all I have to say right now. I think next, it probably makes the most sense for me to jot down my initial brainstorming ideas into a notebook. I might go outside for this, and then I'll use Pinterest and Spotify to gain some more ideas. So I'll see you guys in a second. I feel very close to the camera right now, but we're just gonna roll with it. I am now back from my little brainstorming notebook session. I had such a great time. I was out on the grass for a couple of hours, just daydreaming about my book, writing down any ideas I come up with, and it was a really lovely, relaxing, and exciting session, and a very productive one as well. When I first opened up that notebook, I really wasn't expecting to do anything crazy, to come up with any crazy ideas or anything overly useful. But it's just insane where your mind goes to when you're trying to solve problems with your book. Some solutions to issues I had just came to me so naturally just then in that brainstorming session, and I just feel so prepared to dive into draft 4. So going into some specifics, I have my little notebook here. It was a Secret Santa present from my boss. Very cute. I love it so much. So with Act 1 and my main character, Valentina's proactivity, and my issue with her not really being, someone who takes a lot of action in the first few chapters, I came up with just one idea for one way in which she could be proactive, and then the rest of the outline for Act 1 just sort of fell out of me. It came so naturally. So even though I said I wasn't plotting today, I have basically got a plot for Act 1 just sorted. And it's so insane because I don't see Act 1 changing much after this. I think these are the last changes I'll make to Act 1. And I'm really optimistic about the new outline I've just written down in that brainstorming session just then. I really feel like this is something that's going to stick. And because Act 1 didn't have too many issues with it, I don't really have anything else to change in draft 4. So that means that Act 1 is basically finished after I rewrite it over the next few weeks. I don't know if I'm making much sense right now, but I feel like Act 1 of my book is basically done and finalized once I write draft 4. So yeah, that's a major accomplishment that I just achieved in that brainstorming session just now. And then with the fun and games section that I just don't really have anything for in draft 3, again, I kind of wrote a miniature outline. I wasn't supposed to be outlining today, but the brainstorming just came so naturally to me, and I found ideas I liked so quickly that I was able just to say, okay, well, this is what happens then. This is what happens in chapter 2, this is what happens in chapter 6. An outline literally just fell from me, and I couldn't do anything to stop it coming out of my brain. Anyway, I feel a bit crazy right now, but it was just such a productive session. Act 2, Part 2, so second half of Act 2 with the enemies closing in section. I didn't write an outline for this, but I have got a lot of really good ideas written down that I can super easily turn into a plot over the next few days. I am supposed to be plotting my book over the next week and then starting draft 4 on June 1st, which is a week tomorrow for me. So we'll hopefully be turning these ideas into something a little bit more concrete over the next few days. But regardless, I'm really happy with what I came up with. I've said this a million times, but I think I am just more creative in the sunshine. And then, and this was a huge accomplishment for me, I finally came up with a name for the love interest. I was saying just a couple hours ago that I just cannot think of a name for this man. And then as I sat down in the grass, before I even started jotting things in a notebook, it just came to me. It just came into my ear like a little whisper, like someone from the heavens was whispering in my ear, and the name just came to me. And it's nothing exciting, but it fits his personality so well. It is Caden, so his full name is Lord Caden of Valkova. And I knew for a long time that his name was going to be an Aiden sounding name. So yeah, Caden fits perfectly. His working name for the last draft was Caspian, which obviously I couldn't use for obvious reasons. It's, a major character in the Narnia franchise. But even if I did like it, it didn't fit him well enough. I don't know, something about that name just didn't quite suit the character. But Lord Caden of Valkova, that suits the character super well. So I'm so happy about that. I also jotted down some notes for his character arc and a little bit about his relationship with Valentina, the main character, and his feelings towards her at the start of the book and how those feelings change. Seeing things from his POV is really helpful for me when just, writing his character and the way he behaves towards Valentina from her perspective. And because of that, I was able to do a really rough outline for their love subplot, their romance subplot, which was really useful. And that is pretty much a chaotic summary of everything I wrote down in that brainstorming session just now. So now I'm going to move on to Pinterest and Spotify playlists. I already have a playlist for Slayer Bride, the book I'm working on, but I think it needs updating because I did it quite a few years ago when I was doing NaNoWriMo in 2022. And whilst the book is fairly similar, especially vibes-wise, to what I was writing back then, it definitely does need an update. So I think I'm going to start a playlist from scratch. How I normally approach book playlists is I try to put the music in chronological order. So if I have a song that I associate with a particular scene, I'll try and put it, if it's chapter 1, I'll try and put it at the start of the playlist. If it's a song I relate to the final chapter, I'll put that at the end of the playlist. And then I've almost got this sort of like musical outline of my book. Because my book has changed so much, how I've been using my current playlist is more, I'll just shuffle it. Because the outline in that playlist doesn't really suit what my book is now today. So it could be really fun to just kind of create an updated version of that. I don't think I'll get crazy far because it does take a really long time for me to create these playlists. However, I probably will add to it as I start draft 4. But I think just finding a few songs for some of the things I've been brainstorming today, maybe some songs I really associate with Caden, the love interest. With Pinterest, I think I just want to pin some stuff that suits the settings in these new scenes I'm creating. So I think for Act 1, I should get some nice forest images and maybe some sort of like witchy images because that relates to one of the plot points that now happens in Act 1. Start of Act 2, they kind of party and go out quite a lot, so maybe get some sort of, tavern, bar-esque images in there. And then Act 2 Part 2 is more sort of like action oriented. Our character will be fighting some people, some vampires, and also doing some training to fight those vampires. So pinning some images that inspire these scenes and make me feel creative would be great. It's so difficult to talk about brainstorming without going into specifics and detail about what I'm actually thinking of and what these chapters and these scenes actually contain. But hopefully you're following along, even with me speaking a little bit cryptically and a bit vaguely. So let's start now, and I'll update you afterwards on what songs and what images I have found that I like in particular. I am now done doing my little brainstorming on Pinterest and on Spotify, and I had such a fun time. I said this earlier, but when I was younger, I used to create an outline of my book on Spotify, and that process used to be so exciting for me. It made me feel so creative, it really helped me to connect with my story and made me feel just so excited to start drafting, and I definitely had the same feelings come back this time, especially when I was playing the songs on my old playlist, so my old Slayer Bride playlist. And I found that a lot of the songs still really hit and really connected with the story as it is today. The first song that I listened to was Flight by Sutton Foster, which was one of the first songs I actually added to the playlist in 2022, and I can just hear my character Valentina's voice so clearly when I listen to it. The song is about a woman basically saying that she wants to take flight, she wants to run away, she wants to escape and do something more. And whilst that doesn't perfectly fit Valentina, I really connect to the whole escapism element of the song, because one of my protagonist's biggest issues is that she really is very escapist. She likes to daydream, she likes to, watch films and sort of numb her emotions through escapism. So when the singer in the song, Sutton Foster, is thinking about wanting to take flight, and she's thinking it with so much desperation, that really sounds like Valentina to me. And it's almost like, how some movies have a theme in their soundtrack? This to me is the theme of Slayer Bride, it's the theme of the book. There were some other songs in the old playlist that still really, just fit in really nicely with the story. One was Crude Drawing of an Angel by Caroline Polachek. This is about basically someone who has slept with someone and they feel like this person's going to leave in the morning, so they're essentially trying to draw them so they have something to hold on to remember them by. and this really just fits in with the all is lost beat at the end of Act 2, when my two main characters are in love with each other but they can't be together and they have to be separated. This song really fits in there, so I love that very much. Also the song I Still Love You by Banks. This was, I think, this might have been added to my playlist before Flight by Sutton Foster, because I remember the image of the album looks a lot like Valentina in my head. So the lyrics of the song are basically about someone who still wants to be with someone they're no longer dating, so they still love someone. And again, whilst his lyrics don't perfectly fit in with what my main character Valentina is going through, this just really suits the love she feels for Caden and her desperation to like get back to him in Act 3 and those sorts of like final battle scenes. And then the last song I'll talk about that is old is just the entire Princess Mononoke soundtrack, specifically Departure to the West, but honestly like all of Princess Mononoke's soundtrack is just my go-to creative writing soundtrack. So no matter what I'm writing, no matter what project, what book, what scene, what tone of the scene I'm writing, I can listen to Princess Mononoke and it will just help me to get in the writing zone immediately. I don't know what it is, but that soundtrack makes me feel so emotional. It makes me feel so excited about storytelling, about fantasy, about writing, about character arcs and like the journey my characters go on. I just love that soundtrack so much. No matter what I write, there will be Princess Mononoke songs in the playlist. I didn't get loads of new music, if I'm being perfectly honest. I was listening to things, but I'm very picky about what songs I choose, and nothing was quite hitting. I was specifically looking for songs for Caden to help me get into his psyche, into his mindset, to make it a bit easier for me to write him. The only song I did find was a Ghost Love Score by Nightwish, which coincidentally is my #1 favourite song of all time. I never actually expected to have it in one of my writing playlists, but here we are. And this kind of like allows me to tap into Caden's relationship with himself. If you look at the lyrics, you'll see it's not entirely clear what the song's actually about, but what I took away from it for Caden specifically is it kind of like expresses his fears about losing Valentina, about opening himself up to her, opening himself up to hurt and pain and rejection, and sort of expresses how he feels like the relationship is doomed from the start. So yeah, that's why I chose to add Ghost Love Score to the playlist, and this is how it inspired me and writing Slayer Bride. So moving on to chatting about Pinterest, I found more images for certain parts of the book than others. Act 1 was actually really helpful and really helped me to get a clearer idea of what the setting looks like. And so I knew I wanted this part of the book to take place in a forest. And originally I was just thinking of putting it in a bog standard boring forest, but then when I was looking through Pinterest and seeing, how loads of artists kind of like came up with like really cool, fantastical looking forests with like statues and passageways and really cool looking rivers and ancient ruins, it just made me want to play around with this chapter so much more and make it more fun and more exciting. So moving on to Act 1 Part 1 and the fun and games section of the book, I found some really lovely images of like a medieval looking fantastical village that my characters can like, I guess, have fun in, and like a nice setting where I can have, my main two characters play out the fake dating or actually fake marriage trope that is sort of the promise of the premise for my book. I also wanted to find some images for a hunting lodge that I'm planning on having my characters spend some time in, and I just couldn't find anything that fit. All of the images I found were very like wooden looking hunting lodges, and whilst those are super cute, it's not quite the vibes that I'm going for. This is like a vampire's hunting lodge. So they're not just hunting, deer and animals like that, they're also hunting humans, which I wasn't surprised I couldn't find too many images of that on Pinterest, but I did think I could find some buildings that looked a little bit different to the wooden style hunting lodges. There weren't too many, so I might have to rely on my imagination a little bit for this, which is absolutely fine. I love relying on my imagination. Moving on to Enemies Close In and Act 2 Part 2, I found so many cool images for this. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I said that phrase a million times in this video. I'm so sorry, but brainstorming just hypes me up. But yeah, the images I found are really cool, and I can't wait to turn all the new ideas that these images like sparked in me into something, again, concrete in my plot. And lastly, I used Pinterest to find images for Caden. So I found some images that resembled the way he looks in my head. None of them are perfect. An issue I found is that photos on Pinterest or artwork on Pinterest would either make the person look too boyish to be Caden or too mature to be Caden. And basically he's someone who was turned to a vampire at a fairly young age, in his like very early 20s, when he was like a university student. So it makes sense that he would look on the younger side. However, he's also like a vampire lord. He's been alive for like 1,000 years, and I just want to capture that in his essence. So he's like both young and mature at the same time, and I couldn't find any images that looked perfectly like that. I'll insert any that kind of like closely resemble it, but it was helpful to help me like picture him more perfectly in my mind, to give me something to like use when writing descriptions of his appearance, and again just made me look forward to writing his character a bit more. So I think today was super useful brainstorming wise. I really did make a lot more progress than I was expecting. I was a little bit nervous when it came to filling in the gaps in certain parts of my book today, but I have actually come up with a lot of really useful ideas that can actually turn into something that I can use in my story. So I think I'm ready to start plotting tomorrow. I've given myself a week to plot, so I need to get everything done outlining wise by next Sunday, which I think is the 1st of June or May 31st, one of those 2 dates. So I haven't got long, but I think I'm in a much better place than I was expecting to be at by this stage. So that is all from me today. I will see you in my outlining vlog, which will hopefully come up a week from whenever you're watching this. I hope everything's going well with your writing and with your storytelling, and I will see you all soon. Bye!